The first step in loving other people, and this is so important, and I'm going to explain to you how this first step has applicability throughout your life, not just here at Georgia Tech while you're a student. It's called the 7 Principles of Bonding. We psychologists have identified 7 principles that cause people to like each other. And so that's the first step in loving other people. You use the bonding principles where people like you, and in return you like them. But I don't know about you, but I like to have a reference for the stuff I study and learn. And Dale Carnegie, in his incredible book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, wrote about 6 of the bonding principles back in the 1930s. But the 7th one wasn't discovered until the 60s and the 70s. And it's called SelfDisclosure. And Manuel Smith wrote about self-disclosure in his book, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. So with these 2 books, you have a lot of insight to the 7 principles of bonding. Now, use yourself as a litmus test. I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version. And on the class webpage, there will be a little more extensive Cliff's Notes version of the 7 principles of bonding. And they're also on the website. But I'm going to give these to you in Cliff's Notes form. If you've got lots of friends, check and see that you do these. If you've got lots of friends, say, ooh, this first bonding principle, yeah, I do that. Oh, number 2, I do that. Ooh, number 3, I do that. If you don't have as many friends as you would like, then again, you need to give some thought to start learning the bonding principles. Learning how to use the bonding principles in day-to-day life is a skill. And sports fans, there are 4 levels to acquiring any skill, including learning how to use the bonding principles. Any skill, like snow skiing, like public speaking, like baking a loaf of bread. These are all skills. And there are 4 levels of acquiring any skill. The first level is unconscious incompetence. You don't do the skill well, and you don't know why you don't do it well. And in terms of bonding, I doubt if any of you are that level. Once you make it to college, you've already acquired some of the bonding skills. Okay, but that's the first level, unconscious incompetence. Second level is conscious incompetence. You know what to do, but you haven't learned to do it yet. You're aware of it, but you can't do it. And then, of course, you do a lot of work, you get your act together, really work on developing the skill, and you arrive at level 3, conscious competence. You know what to do, and you know how to do it. But that's not the gold standard. The gold standard is level 4, unconscious competence, where you do the skill without even thinking about it. You see an Olympic skier that is just poetry in motion coming down the ski slope. They ain't thinking about the 15 things you have to do to make a beautiful ski. They just do them automatically. They're at the 4th level, unconscious competence. And that's where you want to be with the bonding principles, where you just do them automatically without even thinking about it. Here they are real quick. Number 1, you got to really like people. If you're a misanthropist, which is a $3 word for someone who hates everybody, chances are you're not going to be able to do the bonding principles. So that's the only attitude. The other 6 are behaviors. So you got to really like people. Number 2, you got to smile. And I could talk to you a long time about the psychological ramifications of smiling, which is one of we human beings' most powerful nonverbal messages. And a smile says several things. When you smile, you're broadcasting to the world around you that it's okay for them to interact with you, that I'm approachable. And once they approach you, the smile also says that you will find when you smile, I'm a really nice person, and you will enjoy interacting with me. And so, because of those 2 nonverbal aspects, smiling is a big damn deal. And so you do that. If you want to bond with people, you smile, and you smile a lot. Number 2 is smiling. Number 3 is using the person's name. And this is another concept that is fraught with psychological overtones. You get the person's name and you sprinkle your conversation with their name. You don't just say, hey, how'd it go today when you encounter a friend? You say, hey, John, how did it go today? Or, hey, Mary, how was your weekend? You sprinkle your conversation with their name. And it's a powerful bonding device. Why? Why is it a powerful bonding device? Well, think about it. Who are you with when you hear your name spoken? When you hear your name verbalized toward you, who are you with? You're probably with a friend with whom you already have a bond, or your family with whom you already have a bond. Your mom says, oh, John, it's so good you could come home this weekend, right? You already have a bond with these people. So when you sprinkle your conversation with the person's name with whom you want to form a bond, and this is kind of surreptitious, they subconsciously put you in the category of friends and family when they hear you say their name. They subconsciously put you in this category of friends and family, and therefore that strengthens your bond with them. So you want to get their name and use it in conversation. Now, I hope none of you guys have said this, but I bet you know friends who do. Oh, I can't remember names. You ever heard that? I can't remember names. Now, that's not an accurate statement. What that person really means is, oh, I haven't yet learned short-term to long-term memory transfer. It's a lot easier to say I can't remember names, right? Right. But I have to share this with you because the research, and it's been written up in the literature, was done by the psychology department here at Tech. We have an ongoing group that studies memory as a function of aging. And here's one of the things they've discovered. Okay, those of you who've had some psychology, you know we have a short-term memory and a long-term memory. And in this learning process, something is introduced into the short-term memory and then transferred to the long-term memory. A polysyllabic concept, which can roughly be described as you can verbalize this concept in around 5 syllables, up to 7 and down to 0. A polysyllabic concept, if kept in your short-term memory, and here's what the research discovered, for a number of seconds approximately equal to your age in years. So for you guys, 20 seconds. If you keep and think about it, all names are polysyllabic. They've got 5 or less syllables. John, Mary, Bill, Elizabeth, Francis, Murgatroyd. You can't think of a name really that's got more than 5 syllables. So names are wonderful candidates for short-term to long-term memory transfer. And so if you just keep a name when you first meet a person in that short-term memory, for you guys 20 seconds, for me 70 seconds, then it automatically transfers to the long-term memory where the decay time is the order of weeks. And so what you do, you just, when you first meet a person, like at sorority or fraternity, rush, or at a conference or someplace, or a party, any place where nobody's wearing a name tag, you simply tack their name onto about 3 sentences, and poof. Now, let's go through a little mathematical exercise here. Let's graph retention in the short-term memory on the vertical axis versus time in seconds. Okay? So I meet somebody. Well, Francis, it's good to meet you. And bang, retention in my short-term memory is way up here. And it starts to decay. And it'll decay in 10 to 15 seconds for most people. So if I don't say Francis again in 10 to 15 seconds, it decays and it's gone. And a minute later, I haven't the foggiest idea who this person is I'm talking to. So you don't let that happen. You say, Francis, it's good to meet you. And Francis says, well, it's good to meet you, Miller. And I say, well, Francis, what brings you to this conference? And when I said Francis the second time in less than 10 seconds, whoof, it came back. And it starts to decay again. And he says, oh, I really like electrical engineering, and there's some seminars here I really want to see. Oh, Francis, that's really cool. Francis, that's really cool. Francis, what seminar do you especially want to go to? And by now, if I'm one of you, 20 seconds has passed, and Francis transfers to my long-term memory, where the decay time is the order of weeks. And if you've never done this, give it a shot. Go meet somebody for the first time and use this technique. It is phenomenal. And it also works for German vocabulary words, assuming they're not this long as some German words are. So do it. So you get their name. That's the third principle of bonding. You get it and use it. Fourth principle is called self-disclosure. That's the principle that was discovered later in the grand scheme of things and written about in Manuel Smith's book. To build a bond with a person, you share yourself with the person in little bits and pieces and get them to share themselves with you in little bits and pieces. You don't yak at the person continuously for 30 minutes about how great you are and then trot away thinking, ooh, this person knows how great I am, they'll want to be my friend. No, it doesn't work that way. No, a person likes you when you tell them how great they are, not when you tell them how great you are. But little bits and pieces. You know, I'm from Augusta, Georgia, Francis. Where are you from? He says, oh, I'm from Perry, Georgia. That's not too far away. Well, gosh, what commonalities do you think we have? I really like snow skiing. What do you like? And you go back and forth in little bits and pieces. Self-disclosure. The fifth principle, guys, this is for you. The fifth principle is called be a good listener. And there are some evolutionary arguments that say evolutionarily men are not good listeners. And guys, I can testify to you that when a member of the Farah gender discovers a guy that knows how to listen, she has found a hot ticket item. And so guys really especially need to practice how to be a good listener. I was leading a study abroad program, the Pacific program. We were in Sydney, Australia for several weeks. And while we were there, this book came out that was number one on the non-fiction bestseller list for Australia. And it was like the famous book in America called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which focused on behavioral characteristics of men and women due to their gender. And an analogous book came out in Australia, and it had the most provocative title. The title was, Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. and it had an evolutionary argument for why this was the case. But in general, that is the case. Men are not as good listeners as women. So men, it behooves you especially to develop the 5 components of good listening. So you will be a hot ticket item. It's really good to be a good listener. And the 5 components are, number 1, eye contact. When you're talking to a person, you look them in the face. And most of you guys are doing that right now, which is good. Number 2 is called interjection. An interjection is a verbalization with no knowledge content. And so the person says, oh man, I've got a great big quiz coming up next week. And you let them know you heard what you said by, oh wow. And notice you just said, oh wow, that's an interjection. But you said it with a tone that said, I'm sorry for all the studying you've got to do between now and then. Right? But these interjections are things like, yeah, or no, or cool, or no way. Those are all interjections, and you say them after the person said something and the person knows you heard what they said. That's the second component of good listening. Third component is nonverbal. Now, eye contact's nonverbal, but it's so important you give it your own category. That leaves 3 ways to listen nonverbally. Change of facial expression. So I've got a neutral facial expression, and you say something, and I go, wow, with an amazed facial expression. And I don't even have to say wow. I just go, ah. You change your facial expression. Number 2, body movement. Normally a movement of the head, like, yeah, dude, that's cool. Or, no way, that's not going to happen. Usually a movement of the head. And number 3, gestures. So you say, wow, dude, that's great. And give them a gesture. And the 4th and 5th ways to be a good listener, you have to learn. They are not intuitively obvious. The 4th way is you make a comment about what the person said, and it makes it, you don't have to, but it makes it warm and fuzzy, or you self-disclose based on what they said. So Francis said, I had the best time last weekend windsurfing down in Daytona Beach, and you let Francis know you heard what he said by saying, you make a comment, windsurfing sounds like a really exciting sport, and then you self-disclose. But I don't know how to windsurf. Tell me what it's like. And so Francis knows for sure you heard what he said. And number 5, you could have asked a question about what they said in self-disclosure. You could have said, Francis, where in the world did you learn how to windsurf? And then tack on, I don't know how. Tell me about it. So there it is. 5 components of good listening. And guys, you especially do it. The 6th bonding principle is talk in terms of the other person's interest. You use questions to find out what they're really interested in, and then you focus on it. Now, talking in terms of the other person's interest comes in 2 flavors, chocolate and vanilla. No, 2 flavors. A, you know the topic they're interested in. They're interested in race cars, you're interested in race cars, so you can really go at it. Or B, you know nothing about what they're interested in. And that's wonderful too, because then you get them to tell you all about it. You get them to teach you all about it. So you can always talk in terms of the other person's interest. And the 7th bonding principle doesn't occur the opportunity to use it doesn't occur very often. But goodness gracious sakes alive, when it does, you jump on it. It's called affirmation. When you find something the person's proud of, you pat them on the back verbally. Wow, you made a 4.0 last semester. That is so awesome. I'm proud of you, dude. You must have had to really work hard to do that. And I bet you were proud. I bet your mom and dad were proud. That's a good thing. I tried, but I only made a 3.8. And affirmation consists not only of the pat on the back, but also a little self-disclosure as well. So there it is. Now, how did you do? If you got lots of friends, do you do all 7 of these? Or if you don't have many friends, do you not do all 7 of these? Think about it. That's the first step toward loving other people.